Welcome to this panel on the creation of Tashkent as a Central Asian International Financial Center. It's a key component to the 2030 plan and the driving of financial services as a clear plank of the country's economic development. Welcome to you all here today. Welcome especially to our panel members. We have some excellent panel members, and I'm sure we're all looking forward to hearing their take on how the centre can be most effectively established. I am Andrew Hayes. I am the managing partner at Hudson Sandler. We are a London headquartered strategic communications and sustainability consultancy. We've had an office in Tashkent for the last 2 years. We're doing some fantastic work here. We're delighted to be investing in the country and helping to create part of the ecosystem for a successful financial centre for the years and decades to come. I would like to start by acknowledging the role of the President of the Republic and the role he has been playing and leading in the development of Tashkent as a IFC in accordance with the decrees issued now 2 years ago. It's encouraging the progress that's been made. We're going to hear a lot more about plans for the future in a minute. But it's also encouraging, I think, to hear the President this morning talk about financial services being an absolutely key plank, one of the key planks of driving the economy for the longer term. So commitment from the top, and the President is obviously key to driving this alongside the rest of the reform programme. It's an ambitious goal, given where we start from. There's nothing wrong with ambition, and this ambition is, I'm sure, going to be fulfilled given the fundamentals, strengths of the economy and the reform programme being put in place. And it's to make Tashkent nothing less than over time a leading regional IFC with the capital of the Republic of Uzbekistan becoming attractive to investors and a financial hub for the region and beyond over time. The creation of the IFC, as I've said, is an important driver for the ambitious goals of Uzbekistan 2030 strategy, as well as being a platform for attracting additional investment and embedding international best practice in the country, particularly around corporate governance, ESG, and technology. So what we're going to talk about today is what competitive advantages does Tashkent have to attract global investors? What indeed attracts investors more broadly to Uzbekistan? What needs to be put in place as an IFC to ensure it is an attractive destination for investment and a catalyst for FDI into the country? What is the current status of the establishment of the IFC in Tashkent? What steps need to be taken now and in the future to make this ambition a reality? So it's a very, very interesting and important topic, and we have excellent panel members reflecting that. So I'm going to ask each of them to briefly introduce themselves. Could we start, please, with Timur Konobayev?
Good afternoon, ladies and gentlemen. My name is Timur Konobayev. I'm the Senior Country Officer for JP Morgan for the Commonwealth of Independent States. We have had presence in Uzbekistan since 1996 and have had quite an incredible journey through that period. We remain, as of today, the only bulge bracket bank with consistent presence in Uzbekistan since the mid-90s. It's a pleasure to be here, and thank you very much for giving us an opportunity to be present.
Thank you, Timur. Tek Ong.
Good afternoon, everybody. My name is Tek Kwan Ong. I'm with Franklin Templeton, based in Singapore. I've been investing in emerging markets for more than 30 years now, and what I see today in Uzbekistan is really exciting for us. We invest in equities, both on the public as well as on the private side. Franklin Templeton is one of the largest global asset manager. Today we manage close to $1.6 trillion for clients across 150 for clients from 150 countries. We are excited to be partnering with the Uzbekistan government to see how we can help develop the capital markets here. And I think the IFC will play a critical role in that process. So on that note, I'll hand it back to Andrew, and just want to say thank you to everybody for being here and for the organizers for organizing this wonderful forum.
Thank you. Golib Holjigitov.
Good afternoon, ladies and gentlemen. My name is Golib Holjigitov. I'm the head of Secretariat of Foreign Investors Council under the President. So the Foreign Investors Council was established in 2019. It's an independent platform that unites government and investors. to resolve issues, to discuss proposals, and basically improve the investment climate. Thank you.
Thank you, Golub. Alina Dolgova.
Thank you, Andrew. Good afternoon to all forum participants. I'm the head of the International Expert Advisory Group on the creation of International Financial Center of Tashkent, and thank you for joining us today.
Thank you, Alina. Sergey Salikov.
Thank you, Andrew. My name is Sergey Salikov. I'm General Counsel of Uzum, the first fintech unicorn in Uzbekistan, and also a member of our working group on International Financial Center law. And I'm just very excited to present today the first concept of this law. Thank you very much, colleagues.
Thank you, Sergey. And finally, Karen Srapionov.
Yeah, thank you, Andrei. Good afternoon, Karen Srapionov. I'm a managing partner of Avesta Investment Group. We are the local investment advisory and a brokerage company, almost already 20 years on the market. We saw how this market was developing for many times and many ups and downs. So we hope that that's a very good time for every one of you to be here in Uzbekistan to get a chance to participate in a once new opportunity to establish new financial market here in Uzbekistan. And thank you for the opportunity to be here already for the second time discussing this very interesting topic. Thank you.
Thank you, Karen. So by way of background, before we start the discussion, many of you may have seen the Hudson Sana report this morning that was in the presidential session exploring Uzbekistan's attractiveness to foreign investors. By way of context for this discussion, there were three factors that stood out as being the bedrock for FDI investment into the country. The first was the country's prudent fiscal and monetary stance. Debt is low and currency reserves are strong, enabling the country to withstand shocks such as COVID and the conflict in Ukraine. Secondly, the gravitational pull for investors of the country's very attractive demographic profile, featuring a young and highly educated workforce with particular strengths in STEM subjects and languages, particularly relevant to establish the International Financial Center over time here in Tashkent. And finally, Uzbekistan's enviable geographical location, which gives the country the opportunity to become the key link between the economies of East Asia, Europe, the Gulf, and beyond. So three very strong pillars for the fundamentals of FDI into the country, which play into this sector as well. If I may, just quote one of the organizations around this table. In the report, there's a quote from Franklin Templeton that said, "The stars seem to be aligned for Uzbekistan to shine on the radar screen of global investors." There's a lot of huge enthusiasm, positivity, and clearly the establishment of a financial center is going to be key to unlocking that potential. So let's crack on with the discussion. So Lena, could you perhaps update us on what stage is the project at? How will the IFC ensure that it is competitive against other and better established financial centers?
Thank you, Andrew. Good afternoon once more time for all forum participants. And on behalf of the International Expert Advisory Group on the creation of the center, I would like to thank everyone for joining us today. It's great to see here many colleagues, investors with whom we have actively interacting over the past 2 years while forming the roadmap, the concept, and all legal amendments on the creation of the center. We have prepared the development strategy for 5 years, and we are currently working on the TIIF's General Act, which Sergey Salikov will present in more details very soon. And I'd like to briefly outline what will form the competitiveness of the center compared to other 120 centers around the globe. The Tashkent International Financial Center aims to become the comprehensive platform for supporting investors as a part of their activities in the country and in the region. And there are three main pillars of the competitiveness of Tashkent as international financial center. First is administrative and legal infrastructure, a special regime for investors, which are some competitive conditions that residents of the center will receive. And I would like to emphasize that the TIIF's model involves improving the existing legal environment, including allowing investors to use globally recognized legal tools and enhancing corporate governance as well. Second is, of course, specialization. And the key focus here lies in providing investors the opportunity to use traditional financial instruments and products through the development of the national capital market. Additionally, we recognize the importance of digital and ESG agenda in the financial market, support of SMEs, and the potential of Islamic banking in the region. So we see this as strategic direction of the center in Tashkent. And the third, the competitiveness of TIIFs is mainly built on the competitiveness of the economy. And according to IMF estimates, the annual growth rates of Uzbekistan will be around 5% up until 2030. The country is very actively developing with lots of investment niches, and Tashkent International Financial Center is designed to be a very convenient environment for global investors. So today we have a remarkable panel with a representative of global financial market and investor community whose opinion on the development of the center is quite important and extremely important for us and will be adapted in our current work on the creation of the center. And I would like to invite all interested parties, investors, colleagues and experts to join the project as a part of the TIIF's project office that will be created very soon. Thank you.
Thank you, Alina. Moving on to Sergey. Sergey, as Alina mentioned, under your leadership, work is currently underway on the development of the Tashkent IFC General Act. Now, I think the audience is going to be very interested to hear what are the main provisions of the Act, what learnings from existing IFCs are being adapted for Tashkent, and how will the IFC, what benefits will it bring to foreign investors when they become resident here and start to operate?
Yeah, thank you very much, Andrew, for offering me the opportunity to talk on International Financial Center Act. Colleagues, I'm very glad to be a member of working group of high professionals that devoted today their time and attention to this topic. But I think that every group participant acknowledges the contribution of Mr. President Shavkat Miramonovich Mirziyoyev into development of investment climate, and thanks to which we're actually able to talk on such modern and progressive topic. Today I'm honored to present the first law concept on International Financial Center. I will briefly describe key features of it without diving into details, but anyway, if somebody wants to argue or discuss some topics, please let me know. We are able to do this, I think, after our panel session during coffee break due to time limitings. First of all, when talking about International Financial Center in Uzbekistan, I think that we need to start with the necessity of building such. And from my perspective, this necessity is absolutely clear. The old-fashioned zero-tax jurisdictions are becoming more and more unpopular due to FATCA control, their residents getting more and more troubles in handling operational activities with the classic financial institutions. And current geopolitical environment forces businesses also to redomicile into more neutral regime. That is why the financial ecosystems, the concept and ideology of financial ecosystem almost replaced the idea of the simple offshore jurisdictions. And exact the same idea was laid in when we were developed this IFC law concept with my colleagues Alena Dolgova and Alexei Sim. I unfortunately haven't seen him, but I hope that he is here actually. As many of you may know, that the most popular classic free zones like Qatar Financial Center or Dubai International Financial Center or DGM are based on or adopted English law concepts. For each sovereign country, the crucial question, however, is whether the legislation should be drastically changed when introducing the IFC law or simply the International Financial Center. Another crucial question is whether the constitution should be also changed for this purpose. And from my perspective, there is no strict necessity in changing the legislation or even amending the constitution, because there are already two options here in Uzbekistan. The first one is either to use already existing form, like special economic zone, or to introduce a special law act by means of which the IFC law becomes like a certain body or authority with the rights to implement its own regulations, which allows also to introduce such types of business organizations like partnerships, limited companies, foundations, and so on and so forth. Another frequently asked questions, colleagues, is who can benefit from being a resident of International Financial Center, and might be locals also members of such center. So when we analyzed regimes of all already existing financial centers, we haven't identified any preventions and any obstacles for the locals. I mean, just for already existing companies and individuals. Yeah? But they can participate in IFC as members through establishment of the types of business organizations prescribed by IFC regulations. However, when interacting, let's say, with the mainland, they should fully observe and comply with the local requirements. Let's consider the example. For example, an IFC member wishes to go public at the Tashkent Stock Exchange. So in such a case, IFC member should fully comply with the requirements of local governing bodies and stock exchange as well. Or IFC member wishes to distribute dividends abroad as well, just so the same. So currency control regime and currency control legislation should be fully observed by the foreigners or by local individuals. Now, colleagues, let's see and stop on IFC law basics. The IFC Law Act shall govern what IFC is, what governing bodies it has, determine location of IFC, and permitted and restricted activities of the residents. In terms of premises, administration could occupy certain location, but from our view, the residents could lease offices available in the authorized business centers. IFC law should clearly distinguish permitted activities of the residents in order not to get into conflict with the local regulation. So the residents may be active in holding assets, investment activities, buy and sell, share through brokers, even of the foreign companies as well. From our view, the personnel of IFC residents might enjoy certain benefits, for example, in obtaining visas of IFC, and have a certain taxation regime, which might be similar to already existing IT park in order to attract professional foreigners and players to the market. Colleagues, now I just would like to briefly describe the IFC structure proposed in our first law concept. The board, as a governing body, as a main governing body, might be chaired by Mr. President, and this is a worldwide practice to do this as well, and has the authority to compose other governing bodies of IFC, like director, which manages day-to-day activities of IFC, and IFC tribunal that solves the disputes among residents and IFC governing bodies. TICC, which is currently being under development, according to my knowledge, and Tashkent International Arbitration Court might be the arbitration panels for settling the disputes among the residents exactly the commercial disputes. And the activity of IFC director might be supported by IFC administration and IFC financial authority, which serves as, I would say, as a local central bank or regulator, but without interfering into affairs of the mainland central bank of the Republic. Here you might see the proposed split of the authorities. I will not colleagues, just stay here long so that you not fall asleep. So in case you just want to get acquainted with our proposal, so we are ready to distribute our proposal of first act. And now let's consider the general procedure of becoming a resident of International Financial Center. So in case the applicant or a person wants or wishes to become a member of IFC, it first applies with a certain procedure and goes through KYC, AML and sanctions check conducted by both specially authorized corporate service providers and second by IFC itself. After being registered, the member becomes a license, which might be also annually reviewed as it is made in ADGM or DIFC, and the company or foundation or joint venture, so the partnership is deemed to be registered when it's actually got this license from IFC. After the company or partnership, as I already pronounced this, so or holding company or foundation is registered with IFC, so this form shall be eligible to open bank and brokerage accounts in banks and brokers authorized by the board, to conduct financial operations in IFC, to conduct all permitted activities of IFC, to go public through Tashkent Stock Exchange or even at the local stock exchange of IFC if such would be established, and to upstream proceeds from the transactions abroad if established by foreign UBO, for example. From our view, in order to boost attractiveness of future IFC, its regulations should provide for an option for redomicile of other English law-based companies like BVI, Cayman Islands, or I don't know, simple Cyprus company, just to make it more attractive. Dear colleagues, so we truly believe that IFC may open a door and attract new investment opportunities into Republic of Uzbekistan, introduce best practices and best types of organizations in order to conduct joint investments, trigger family offices and asset management business, and increase market capitalization of the local stock exchange. So we strictly encourage you just to get more actively involved into discussion of our first law concept, and would very appreciate this. Thank you very much.
Thank you, Sergey, for that very comprehensive overview of the detail of what actually is being proposed. You've clearly been working very hard with your team over the last 2 years. That's very encouraging. It's encouraging that the regulatory framework can be smoothly implemented without constitutional reform or major legal reform. So that's very encouraging, and clearly you're in a very strongly placed to take it forward. But I want to ask you a supplementary question, if I may. Are you prepared to put your money where your mouth is? Uzum's a major company, it's a unicorn. Will Uzum be considering becoming a resident of the IFC when it's established?
So first of all, it depends on the quality of the center. If and we actually, firstly, just always count on the interest of our investors. But in case it will be like a platform which is functioning similar to ADGM or the IFC, and we are ready to contribute our efforts just to assist in this matter as well. So I think that it's possible, even for the purposes of future technical IPO or something of this kind. So that's why I will not refuse from this idea, but it depends actually on timings and on the service which will be provided by the IFC.
Thank you very much. So turning to Timur. Obviously, JP Morgan, one of the world's leading investment banks. You've been active in the region for many years, so it's obviously very important to hear your views about the infrastructure, the ecosystem, and what interest do you have in Uzbekistan, and what needs to be right and put in place for you to increase your commitment to the country and indeed become resident in the IFC moving forward?
Thank you, Andrew. As I mentioned before, we've been in Uzbekistan for a good part of 30 years, and we have been covering this particular market for a number of decades, even before that. Now, clearly, us becoming resident of the International Financial Center in Uzbekistan will be a logical continuation of that long-term presence and our ongoing commitment to the country. We've seen many cycles, we've seen many changes to the policies throughout that period, and we remain committed through ups and downs, quite frankly. And again, seeing this development is indeed quite encouraging. To answer your question, and I think that goes back to what Sergey has just said, whether or not JP Morgan would consider becoming the resident of Uzbekistan IFC once that becomes international, the answer is yes, absolutely, we would consider that. However, this is going to be very much driven by the actual business opportunity that that particular financial center is going to present. Ultimately, it's all about the opportunity cost. It's all about the execution. I think my colleague has put it quite well. He said it's down to the quality, down to what the International Financial Center would be able to offer. We've seen times and times again where there is a disconnect between what investors demand and what issuers would expect to see from a financial center, from a particular listing venue. So this is going to be quite critical, quite frankly, for us to become resident. There needs to be no disconnect between the expectations of the issuers and the expectations of the investors. If these two conditions were met, frankly, JP Morgan will be the first to raise its hand and say, listen, we're very familiar with the region, we're very comfortable with the leadership, we will absolutely follow the flow of the money, okay? We've actually, I've mentioned, speaking to a number of our clients who are present in this forum today, they've come to us before and they've asked us, guys, can you help us in Uzbekistan, can you introduce us to the opportunities? And this is what JP Morgan does best, simply because of its global nature, okay? So in terms of what would be required for us to increase our investment and presence in the country, I think the Vice Prime Minister of Turkey has put it quite well this morning in the plenary session, where he said there's two things, stability of the political environment and stability and predictability of the policy. Again, this is something that we would very much expect to see before considering to increase our investment and our ongoing presence in Uzbekistan. But not only that, we would also like to see greater exposure of the country to the international capital markets, because again, placing it firmly, this is where we make our money, okay? This is where the business expects to be. So we were very encouraged by the fact that the President has declared the country's continued openness to an international economy, to the fact that there will be IPOs down the road. And again, these are the kind of opportunities that we have been waiting here in Uzbekistan for a long, long time. And finally, it will be very important to be able to address regional opportunities, not just Uzbekistan-geared opportunities, but opportunities in Kazakhstan, opportunities in the Caucasus, opportunities in the other neighboring countries through the International Financial Center. I think here one needs to emphasize the word international. This is not just a financial center for Uzbekistan. This is not just a financial center for the Uzbek issuers or investors in Uzbekistan. In fact, international institutional investors would expect to be able to access opportunities presented by the other countries through that particular platform. So again, with all these conditions being in place, we would very much be like part of it.
Thank you. Thank you, Timur. And just a quick supplementary, if I may. The polarization program, how critical is that to the roster of opportunities as you evaluate whether JP Morgan should commit to the IFC?
I think it goes hand in hand with my earlier statement saying that the country needs to commit itself to the international capital markets. Okay? okay? And here, privatization program will play an extremely significant role, okay? There's no hiding of the fact that the state plays a dominating role in the economy, and I think it has been widely accepted, both globally as well as regionally, that that needs to change, okay? And it is those opportunities that will ultimately drive the flow of capital into the country, okay? So we have been working through these years, both with the sovereign, with the government, with quasi-sovereign institutions, with state-owned companies, as well as with the private sector, and we see opportunities being abound there, okay? But increasingly, we see investors looking more and more on the private sector side because this is where they see true value, okay? That has perhaps not been fully appreciated so far by the international markets. So once again, we think this privatization program is going to be very critical, and its execution, okay, again, being very open about it. There has been a number of attempts at privatization in Uzbekistan over the past several decades. Here, I actually see it being very, very different this time, okay? There's a distinct list of companies, there's distinct timeframes, okay? There are people, there are agencies that have been identified as being responsible for delivering the result. So hopefully this time it will be different, and this privatization program will be the first stepping stone in really opening up the economy fully to the international markets.
Thank you, Timur. Moving on to you, Tekwan. I think I can say with some certainty that one thing an international finance center needs is investment organizations such as yours. So could you talk a little bit about how Tashkent IFC might fit into your global platform, given you're such an important player in emerging markets? How comprehensive does the range of products and services need to be, or should it start in a more limited and less ambitious way as it establishes itself?
Yeah, thanks for that, Andrew. So the short answer to your first question is yes, absolutely. I think we have been looking at Uzbekistan since 2017, 2018. And, obviously that's when Mr. President first came to power in 2016, and we have really been excited to see the reforms and the developments since then. But maybe if I can say something about capital markets, and I'm pleased to hear this is one of the 3 pillars for the AIFC. The capital markets is extremely important for the development of a country, not just for its economy, not just for its companies, but often less said for its citizens as well. Because there need to be an avenue for the citizens of a country to invest their money. I mean, if you look at the most developed market and you look at the participation of retail investors, it will be the US, where the participation is huge and many people have money in there for their pensions and so on, right? So it's a very, very long-term, it's very important for the long-term prospect of a country to have a well-developed capital markets. To the extent that the IFC can help with that growth, that's very positive. Now, maybe to answer your question, Andrew, what do portfolio investors, our clients, look for when they invest in the country? And I think a lot of the points have been touched on, and also earlier this morning as well. But just to emphasize, investors need to have confidence in the country before they put their money in. This, I'm talking about portfolio investors and also direct investors. And they get the confidence from knowing there is integrity and stability in the financial system. That's one thing that's key. Secondly, they are comfortable that there will be shareholder and investor protection, because portfolio investors, by definition, will be minority shareholders, and very often minority shareholders do not get a lot of rights. But if they know it's a fair playing field, they'll be comfortable coming in. And thirdly, and there are many things, but thirdly, I also want to mention free capital movement. So to the extent that all this are available, I think it will be an attractive destination. Just to share some experience, Templeton started investing in emerging markets in 1987. At that time, it launched the very first emerging markets fund that is open for retail investors. Today, that fund still exists. It is listed on the New York Stock Exchange. It's called Templeton Emerging Markets Fund, and we continue to invest that fund after, 38 years. During that period of time, we have seen a lot of ups and downs in emerging markets. We have good lessons and we have bad lessons, and we have a lot of war wounds, a lot of war stories that we can share with you. But looking at Uzbekistan today, we don't really see that. I think there's great opportunity here. I think Mr. President's single-mindedness for reform, I think that's positive. But now what is key is the execution of that. So in coming to your point about products, I think to the extent that the capital market can be as deep and as broad as possible, they'll be obviously the best. And you want to kind of start strong. You do not want to start with a small suite of products and build it over time. I think investors will then wait for that time to see what you have before they come in, right? So my recommendation is, as broad as possible. I think that will be best.
Thank you very much. So there you are, Sergey and Alina. Start strong. And I look forward to hearing some of the war stories over a drink later.
Which I'm sure you will.
So moving on to Karen, the development of capital markets in Uzbekistan is obviously receiving a lot of attention. It's very important, we've just heard, for long-term development, not just of the economy, but of society, as individuals need to invest their savings. So it's obviously critical to enhance the investment attractiveness of the jurisdiction. So Karen, you've been working and providing services in the financial markets in Uzbekistan for a long time. You are well acquainted with the current situation and the changes that are already happening, which are very positive. So how do you assess the market's developments over the past few years? And then looking forward, what are the priorities from your perspective as a long-standing participant in the market here?
Yeah, thank you, Andrew. Definitely very interesting question, taking in account that already 2 or 3 guests asked me the same question, because we're having this discussion for the 2nd year. Everyone are asking what is changing, why are we not moving forward with the development of the market. So first of all, for last year we had changed a regulator. Last 2 years we changed regulators twice, so it definitely affects. And since the market is very difficult in general, plus the local legislation base is very difficult, because we have more than 40 major laws and bylaws which regulates the industry, and the colleagues from the regulator, I guess, calculated more than 100 documents which partially related to the market. So it's a very difficult sector, and every regulator spends good half a year just to be acquainted with infrastructure, with the processes here. And unfortunately, we having this process every few years. So it's not the situation when we cannot develop the market for 10 years or something like this. Just we're starting from the scratch every 2 or 3 years. So the important part is sustainability. And that's why for me, the idea of the International Financial Center, here the most important is that the chance to consolidate all the activities from different ministries, agencies, business, to have the strategy and execute it within shorter time. So the development of the local market is ongoing. We have the latest decree from the September, which introduced a lot of new changes, such as tax exemptions for retail investors, such as the ESOP, so the equity share option program, which was absolutely absent for previous decades. The main part is and I guess it's the most important part, is allowing foreign investors to directly access the market. First, it starts definitely with the state debt securities through establishing this regulatory sandbox and allowing big institutional investors who are actively oversubscribing our Eurobonds, corporate and sovereign Eurobonds issues, to tap the local market and invest in onshore Uzbek soon-denominated papers. Definitely later it should evolve into the corporate debts locally, maybe then in equities, but it will take good 2-3 years, I guess, at least in a very positive case. So I hope that International Financial Center will be the way to speed up this process, will give another opportunity to investors to come onto the market and introduce new instruments. So I guess that's the idea in general. So the main thing is access of investors to the market, introduction of the new instruments which are lacking, and unfortunately for the last couple of years we didn't saw anything. Even we was promised with the Islamic bonds, with ETFs, with a lot of other things, which is now under the development in legislative base, but we will spend another time for practical development of this product. So investors, instruments, and definitely protection of the investor rights. Unfortunately, you mentioned the privatization process, and Timur mentioned that privatization should be done properly. Unfortunately, we saw that a number of good big companies which was privatized, surprisingly, they disappeared from the local market just because of the not proper corporate governance and approach of investors to the treating of minority investors. So these things are important. These things are on a very so you could find these bad stories in the first link in the Google search. Said this is what investors from abroad see when they try to research the Uzbek markets. So there is a huge amount of work to be done. It's going on, but I hope that the financial center will help us to speed up this process. Thank you.
Thank you, Karen, and I think it's a very important point you make about the protection of minority investors, and where they're not protected, that is clearly is very unsettling and frightens off international capital, so it's critical. And your point about the IFC being a platform to accelerate development, I think is a point very well made. Moving on to you, Golib. The representatives in the investment community have identified a number of directions, as we've heard today, that the IFC needs to take. You are obviously playing a key role in driving this forward, and I understand that significant results, and there will be some major announcements tomorrow at the plenary session with the participation of the President. So I'd like to ask you a very straightforward question. What are the priorities today, and what might we hear over the coming days?
Okay, thank you. Thank you, Chairman, for the question. Before I think moving into the investment law, I'd like to just highlight about the International Financial Center. So we closely work with investors. We have even dedicated working group. And underdeveloped financial markets is one of the issues, key issues. As our colleagues rightly pointed out, we may have a lot of laws, legal frameworks, but execution would be a challenge. So from this practical perspective, I think if we want, we support the development of financial center, but I think if we really want to be pragmatic, it would be practical to start from addressing the challenges that investors are having. For example, many financial participants, they know there is a low liquidity in our capital markets, so they have to go and raise capital abroad. There is lack of relatively low availability of long-term financing in national currencies, SUMs, higher interest rates, and of course, as our colleagues mentioned, dominance of state-owned banks in the economy. So privatization, it's ongoing. It will be accelerating, as the President has today and even in previous meetings is mentioned. So I think if we really want to be pragmatic, I agree with our colleague that maybe sometimes things should be starting big. But you have you have to also consider the mindset of Uzbeks. We have even saying, measure 7 times and then cut. We are very pragmatic and careful people, and this is, I think, also should be considered. And also another part, I think there's a lot of myth that's happening in the financial centers in our neighboring countries, and there's mixed facts, mixed myth. And I think there should be also work happening in the area of advocacy, demystifying that it's too expensive. Because I was part of I worked at Ministry of Finance, hold some key roles there. I understand that these larger ministries and agents, key ministry agents, they need to be brought in, right? So there is a lot of skepticism there, doubt that it will be too expensive, unpractical. So I think that we should probably reverse the table and start, okay, what's it's going to bring to our economy, to whether it's local or foreign investors. And I think introduction of financial instruments and currency, yeah, that would be a good start, in my opinion. But in the general sense, I agree there's a huge need for the development of financial center. And there was a lot of work that was happening with the development of capital markets in Uzbekistan. Even the draft law was supported by EBRD. Now the new regulator is now, I think, picking up the pace and starting to move this. So I think this is not a one area report. This should be kind of holistic, right? There should be cooperation between agencies, coordination, and everybody should be buying in. Otherwise, it could stall the process. I'm just, again, going back and saying that the execution could be a challenge. So going back to your question about investment law, as today President addressed, the investment law has been revamped with the support of IFC, International Financial Corporation, and other IFIs, ADB, EBRD. And the focus, of course, we tried to, from our perspective, we work with Ministry of Investments quite closely in this area. So there are quite new areas that we are addressing, and one of the most important ones, as our colleagues rightly mentioned, is protection of investors. So there is provision that provides fair and equitable treatment on full protection and security for all investors, whether it's they are local or foreign. So this is one of the new areas. So, and second area is the private investors. So this new law will be focused on FDI and private investors, while before it also covered public investors. International arbitration is also part of the new provision, granting investors access to domestic international dispute settlement, one-stop shop for investors, mandating the ministry as a single authorized body for coordinating the whole investment project cycle. Expropriation, providing protection to investors against both direct and indirect expropriations. And last but not least is the market entry rules. Clear market entry rules to first entry point. So there is a provision which envisages the establishment of front office and back office to help the investors to go through the single window process of the authorized entities. So briefly, that's it. Thank you.
Thank you very much, Golib. And that was very helpful. I was particularly pleased to hear about this one-stop shop concept to simplify and accelerate and to make it easier for organizations to participate in this great initiative. Thank you, panel members, for a very interesting and thought-provoking discussion. There are clearly many areas we haven't discussed today which are relevant on AFC: connectivity, air links, the infrastructure, what the President talked about this morning, education, about attracting people to come and live here, which clearly also has a cultural dimension. So there are many things intertwined with establishing the AFC over the coming years and decades. And I come back to what you said, Tektuan, about a vibrant capital market is very important for society as a whole and can deliver immense benefits in delivering returns of people's savings and investing in their businesses. So it's very, very exciting, but it's embryonic. So I would say to everybody who's in the industry and who's here in Uzbekistan and hears about the tremendous opportunity, you want to get here quick and you want to establish a position in what is going to be, I'm sure, a very dynamic market and capital market over the years and decades to come. To that end, Alina, I know you welcome partners and people who are here, anybody who's here at the summit to make contact with you. As we've heard from the President, and we've heard from ministers today, and we've heard at this panel today, the government is in listening mode as well. They want to learn, listen, and understand what investors want. So I'm very optimistic. We're very pleased to be in Tashkent, and I'm sure it's going to be a great success. Thank you, ladies and gentlemen.